Canada is facing an immigration crisis, and Justin Trudeau, the man in charge, could either be the solution or a part of the problem. At first glance, Canada's immigration approach seems like an inclusive and compassionate step, with Prime Minister Trudeau advocating for a policy that allows more immigrants into the country. However, this plan is starting to shake as the rapid population growth and inadequate infrastructure poses challenges in healthcare and shelter. Canada's population is rapidly growing at a rate of 1.2 million people annually, which is equivalent to Calgary's population. By 2025, Justin Trudeau has an annual target of 500,000 permanent residents. But with the limited capacity for healthcare, shelter, and social services, this goal is starting to look like just a dream. The rapid influx has caused an increase in housing rent in cities like Toronto and Vancouver, pushing residents out of their neighborhoods. Meanwhile, Canada issued 1.2 million work permits and 680,000 study permits in 2023, which caused an additional demand for housing services. At the same time, Canada's healthcare system is already stretched thin and is starting to buckle. Medical services now have longer waiting times, and family doctors are becoming more unavailable, leaving a lot of patients reliant on overcrowded walk-in clinics and emergency rooms. Trudeau's immigration policy shows a huge disconnection between his inclusive ideas and reality. Although he speaks about the benefits of immigration, which includes cultural and economic benefits, his acknowledgement of an immigration crisis contrasts deeply with his ambitious targets for the government. Temporary residency programs like work permits and student visas have become the major drivers of population growth, but during public debates, they are rarely discussed. Faced with more criticism, Justin Trudeau has directed the blame on corporations, universities, and provinces, accusing them of asking for more workers and students. Critics argue that this pays no attention to the federal government's role in creating policies that facilitated the surge. Due to the contradictions, the public trust is undermined as Canadians face worsening housing and healthcare challenges without clear solutions. Temporary foreign workers have occupied industries like healthcare, construction, and agriculture, but due to their increasing numbers, there has been an increase in job competition, leaving many Canadians displaced from roles originally held by locals. The increase in international students has added to the housing crisis, especially in cities like Toronto and Vancouver, where limited housing stock has driven up rental prices. Many students live in overcrowded apartments, straining affordability for Canadian families. Educational institutions and corporations have new immigration policies, advocating for more foreign workers and international students to offset funding gaps and meet labor shortages. Because of this, the sentiment on immigration has increased significantly, with 60% of Canadians believing the immigration levels are too high. The concerns spread across different regions, including non-white Canadians, which poses a political challenge for Justin Trudeau's government as opposition parties capitalize on these concerns. Although immigration is important for overall economic growth, the per capita GDP has declined, reflecting a stagnating individual prosperity. In the case of Justin Trudeau repeatedly avoiding responsibility for the negative consequences of his immigration policies, instead of acknowledging the challenges, particularly in healthcare and housing, his government sets immigration targets and regulates the flow of immigrants, but when problems arise, he avoids accountability. An instance is when he was confronted with the housing crisis, he claimed that provincial governments and municipalities should handle the necessary infrastructure. Although the local government plays a role, the federal government is responsible for setting the immigration targets and making sure the country can handle the influx of immigrants. Similarly, on workforce shortages and strain on public health care, Justin Trudeau deflected the blame on the private sector and educational institutions, despite the role of the federal government in molding the immigration policy. This method of avoiding accountability has created a trust deficit within the populace of Canada, causing many citizens to see his leadership as disconnected from the realities of healthcare delays, living costs, and housing shortages. The Minister of Immigration, Mark Miller, has undermined the trust in the government by making contradictory statements. On one hand, he has admitted that parts of the immigration system are being taken advantage of, especially by international students and foreign workers who have no clear pathway to permanent residency or full integration into the workforce. On the other hand, Miller insists the system is functioning optimally, claiming Canada is maintaining a fair and robust immigration system. This contradiction is obvious when one pays close attention to the increase of temporary work permits and study visas, which contributes to the housing crisis by adding to the demand for rental properties. Meanwhile, Miller maintains the opinion that the immigration system is not broken, despite the growing strain on houses and other social services. His policy contradictions also add to the confusion of the public. Although the government has introduced strict measures to tighten immigration control in some areas, it continues to promote high immigration targets and expand programs that pertain to temporary residents. This inconsistency in decision makes it difficult for Canadians to have a clear understanding of the direction the government is going and how it will impact their community, especially with the growing evidence of the negative effects. The continuous blame shifting by Trudeau and his government, combined with the contradictions in the statement of figures like Mark Miller, shows a huge lack of accountability when it comes to the negative consequences of the immigration policies of the country. Instead of addressing the root causes of the immigration crisis and putting into implementation policies that ensure social stability and economic stability in the long run, the government has chosen to shift the blame and send out contradictory messages. As the housing crisis, economic strain, and healthcare delays continue to get worse, it is clear that the government's tactics to avoid responsibility are not only politically dangerous, but also undermine the ability of Canada to address the critical challenges in a meaningful way.